Hey guys, Kyle Mainville with Mainville ATV and Outdoors. Today we're going to pull out my 2018 XMR out of the shop and give you an honest review, good or bad. I don't owe anybody anything, so I'll tell you exactly what I think. There's definitely plenty of both categories. So I'm just going to get it out of here and put that back on. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So here it is. This is my 2018 CanAm XMR. It's the 1000. So for myself, I got the extended frame. You don't really have much of a choice for the 1000s and the XMRs, so they always come long. So the 850s are the short frames. You basically knock this chunk out, and this back section, this is part of the link queue system where the spare seat goes, which I have. So it's a little harder to wheelie, essentially, is what it is. It definitely does it no problem. You just got to convince it a little bit. But we bought it in January of 2018. It's so far been pretty good to us. It's matched all expectations as far as I'm concerned. There's a few cons I find, but we'll get into that. I'll go piece by piece. Up here in Canada, by the time you get the machine out the door, we were fortunate enough to buy it cash, so we saved a few ways, but they can get quite expensive here in Canada to buy a bike. So people in the States always ask us why it costs us so much money. Well, Canada gets dinged pretty hard. So for myself, with all of the seats, the storage, I have a big bin for the back, snorkel extension, I got cable for the winch, remote for the winch. I have a snow plow. You can see the mount there, and the whole thing, that was about $21,000 for me. So it's definitely been, it's a bit much, but we don't regret it. It's been very good. So we'll start getting into the details anyway. So I guess we'll start off with modifications. It's a pretty short list. I haven't done a whole lot to this bike. My wife would murder me otherwise. But so far I've just done the CanAm Yoshimura exhaust, and there's a good reason for that. It's mostly due to its cost. It's well-performing exhaust. Sounds great, which to be honest is exactly what I was looking for, was just a little bit of sound. It's a slip-on, so the one nice thing about it is made for this bike, so you don't have to get a tuner for it. Can you combine a tuner with it? Sure, absolutely. Will you get more performance? Probably. But it hasn't caused any issues. It runs great. It's not extra hot or anything like that. Easy to install. There's a video for that. If you want to see it, I'll include it in the description. So that's pretty much really the only modification I did. I did do halos on the front. They were sent to me, so I figured why not put those on. And I mean, they're pretty cool. And then I basically switched out the hook. Not a fan of what CanAm sells out of the gate, so I bought this on Amazon. Most people who are looking for easy improvements have probably seen these worn hooks on Amazon, and KFI bump stop. I just took a page from Rob Farrow ATV, and I wanted a big machete on the bike, so this is where I stash mine, and it just slips into there. I'll probably find a better way of securing that at some point, but it's nice and easy to grab when you want to hack some branches off that are pretty healthy. They can be annoying when you try to rip them off by hand. One of the things I did get was this mud strap, which honestly is better used if you have like a kid on here and you're bringing them for a ride. They hold on to that, and it's actually great for that. So I have used it in the mud, but slinging these things around isn't as easy as just pulling on a strap. So I also put, this is from Amazon, Smittybilt I believe, just a 2-inch receiver and D-ring, so I can tow and get people out. As I've showed in other videos, I do carry this this rope too, off-roading gear rope. It's good for like 19,000 pounds and something like 7,000 shock load. And I just keep my papers and stuff in there. This box, we should probably talk about. They try to tell you that, oh, it's a sealed box and it's advertised as that, and everyone knows if you own one of these or have a buddy that they are not waterproof. They're not even water resistant. It might as well not even have a seal, to tell you the truth. I think it's only there to stop it from rattling. So don't believe the hype on that one. It'll store stuff, don't get me wrong, that's fine. It hasn't opened on me or anything like that, but it's absolutely garbage when it comes to holding out water. So I haven't had any problems with axles. They've been really good to me. And most people who don't lift these machines, truth be told, the XMRs do pretty well on stock axles. I haven't had any issues, or any of my buddies have had any issues with the axles. When it comes to a ripped boot or something like that, that's something different, but I haven't had any issues there. One thing is these brake pads. Another issue with CanAm, there's going to be a few of them in this video, is the brake pads on these, they're just not good, and they wear out quickly, so I'm already ready for a set myself. And there's 3 brakes on these, so this rear left corner doesn't have a brake, but I'm going to be doing pads on that for sure. So as far as suspension, Fox shocks, all the hype, sure, they're plenty good, but this thing's like riding a horse and buggy. Just, you're tied up to 100 horses, so it rides rough. I do a mixture of mud and trail. I'll basically do anything. I'll run water, whatever, skeg. But when it comes to trail riding, if I'm doing like an ATV club event or something like that, this thing is rough. So if you're doing 200K plus or something like that, you'll be pretty banged up going over rocks and stuff like that, because these mud tires, they run quite a bit of pressure in them, and they're stiff. And then you combine that with your suspension, and it's nothing but rough ride. But for myself, as a younger guy, I'll deal with it. The power's worth it. I haven't necessarily been too stuck yet unless I'm looking for it. So that's sort of the trade-off, I guess. As far as electrical and stuff like that, I put a bunch of dielectric grease and everything. I haven't had any issues that way, so that's been really good so far. The connections are really good, I find. So I have zero concerns that way. I thought I would like these racing pegs more. They're more like, there is a use for them. I just don't find myself using them. So if you have the option to buy them or not, I guess it's up to you. But personally, I haven't had much success with them. I basically use them to wheelie. That's about it. Because with the long frame, I have to put my weight here and really punch it, and it'll go up, and it'll go up 9 times out of 10, but I have to be up here swinging my weight in order to get it to do it. So I know a lot of guys who buy like light frames and stuff like that. It's the same plastic here when you buy the legal up seat, like light frame 450s or Max or whatever. They tell you you can't get these on them, but you can. So you'll notice most of those bikes just have this platform here. You can buy these to go on top. So I know a lot of dealerships just may not have experience with some bikes doing certain things, but you can absolutely do it. Clutches. So I have a box in the garage of my buddy's 850, and those clutches will run you, and they'll work, but to me it seems like they're designed for a smaller engine. They just don't have the pickup and go that everybody's looking for, and that's why there's such a strong aftermarket for these bikes for clutches, especially the primary. The secondary is fine. The primary can definitely be improved, like STM or CV Tech or whoever. They're all basically doing a better job than what's coming stock on these. It's almost like they designed everything off of like a 570 or a 650, and then they just slapped a 1000 or an 850 behind it. So that's one of my biggest concerns with this bike. I've used the stock belt for about 900 kilometers, and I was already glazing it over really bad. So now I have it as a bush belt, and I have the Maverick belt on it. I don't have much to say about the Maverick belt too much yet. I did check it out the other day, and it's in good shape, and I put it through some abuse. So is it doing better than the stock belt? Yes, absolutely, so far anyway. But I'll probably do another review and at 100 hours or 150 hours, something like that, whenever I get around to it. My winch, not an issue there so far. I find it sticks every once in a while, but it's working well. I actually pulled a tree out of the swamp back there with it at near max distance, and it worked well, as long as you give it its time to cool off, because they have a working load limit, let's say, where if you're going to use them for 10 minutes, for example, you should only use them 6 out of the 10 minutes and then let it cool off, just for numbers sake. That's how that roughly works. Just because that motor gets crazy hot, and you'll start seeing it smoking and stuff like that. If you do that to your winch a couple times, you're going to start seeing it wear out. Of course, I have no problem with the steel rope that's on it. I do suggest upgrading the hook, like I was pointing out. But no, there's plenty going on. Front diffs, I check them religiously, just because these things have a reputation of letting water in, especially the rear diff, actually, just because of the way the tail shaft comes into it at a bit of an angle, and the seals on them are notoriously bad. So there's plenty of companies that are making different diffs or different parts and stuff like that. I myself have not had an issue yet. I did check my tail shaft for phasing, because from the factory there's a bit of an issue where they're not phased correctly, and it creates a vibration and all these other issues. You'll have to look that up. So there's problems there too. I don't seem to be part of that club, luckily. So that's not so bad. The rear link-U system has actually been pretty good to me. I like the modular design. When I put my storage bin on the back, I can't remember if I have a 60 or an 80 gallon storage bin for the back, but it snaps in really easy. I like how that goes. The one problem I have with it is there's one hook that goes in here, one that goes in here, and then you have just a piece of aluminum that clips underneath and stops it from wobbling, or at least it's supposed to, but it does not. It vibrates like a bastard. So not too keen on that. I would suggest going with like a Kimpex or some other reputable company to make your storage bins. Don't suggest the CanAm ones. I haven't had a good experience with them, and neither have most of my buddies who have them on their machines. This little storage bin I do like. It works well, and so far it has kept water out of it, but just like the rear storage, I've heard bad stories about these guys too. Eventually they give up. So what else we got? Oh yes, I did a video of hitting a trail called Black Bay, and it was really early spring, late winter. And one thing that this machine does, I find, is I broke a chunk of ice, and it essentially launched this chunk of ice through my fenders, all up and through. And there isn't a whole lot of room on some of these points, right? And a lot of guys trim this or buy like full armor pieces and stuff like that. But what it did was break out a bunch of chunks and drag the ice through my fenders instead of like getting it ejected outwards. So I got a little bit of damage. I have it stitched on the inside and industrially glued, but you can see fade and a few pieces of damage, and that happens. I mean, it's an all-terrain vehicle, what do you expect? But it sucks. I did that like a couple weeks after owning this thing, but at least I got it out of the way, and now I don't care. So one of my biggest gripes with this machine is the snorkels. They're actually run to about here, so the height isn't all that great. So when I was buying it, I was like, well, I'll get this snorkel extension. You would assume that it actually extends your snorkel, right? But all it does is give you this housing the pipes are in the same spot, and they don't actually bring the pipes up, or in regular height like you'd see most bikes do with aftermarket. So that is simply false advertising to me. There's videos online from power mods and stuff like that talking about it, so I won't go too far into it. Just know that the snorkel extension is literally useless. The only thing I use it for is I put my helmet here when I stop. That's the only thing it's good for. So that's garbage too. A lot of my plastics and stuff like that are holding up really well. I do find that the way they're molded and everything, they seem to be pretty strong, but in the winter they can become really brittle really quick. So you can tell in the summer they have like flex and all this, but in the winter, if you came up and did the same thing, I find them, they're like ready to snap. So be careful with that for sure. And I'm sure that's not just CanAm's problem. I'm not tearing them apart completely, just giving you my experience. This machine is, I would buy another one again knowing what I know, just because I know what to do about all the stuff now. But another big issue that I have is maintenance on this thing. A lot of it's pretty easy, but when it comes to changing your oil, checking the transmission, a lot of this plastic has to get torn out of here, and I just don't know why there isn't an access plate or something. Like you look at a Kodiak or a Grizzly or something Japanese, they think about all this stuff. They put covers where you can open it up, check your fluids and whatever. And as long as I could check it, I'd be all right with it. So I have to tear a lot of plastics out of places just to get at certain things, and I find that incredibly annoying. It should be more user-friendly to maintain. Checking your oil is easy. Your filter's up in the middle of nowhere, so plastic has to come off. Transmission's in the middle of nowhere, plastic has to come off. Some of the grease points are a little ridiculous. Some of them are easy too, and then when you check your diffs, those are actually accessible, which is good because you got to check these often. Like I said before, they've got water issues, seal issues, whatever you want to call it. The bike's got problems, no doubt. And you'd think they'd have it all figured out at this point, but they don't. Overall, my experience, like I said, I would buy it again. I really would. Especially knowing what I know now. There's bits and pieces that definitely need to be improved. They're a large enough company that you think they would. Oh yeah, that's right. So studs. I have been blowing out studs like crazy. And I am a mechanic. I do have properly tuned snap-on equipment to do torque. I have them at 74 pounds like they describe in the book, and I double checked with my dealer just in case, and I have been snapping them at 74 pounds, and I'm not the only one. I have several friends with bikes doing the same thing, and they're snapping studs. So I went anywhere between 50 and 60, and I haven't snapped a stud yet. So my advice is to just toner it back a little bit. And I've been riding like 600-700 kilometers like that without a single stud breaking all of a sudden, but I went through probably 8 or 9 of them doing the 74 foot-pounds that they recommend. So be careful with that. I've had no problems with these tires and rims. They've held up. I've bashed them against rocks I didn't see at full tilt, and the beads are holding. The one thing about these tires, I do really like these tires. They made a good choice overall as far as a generic mud tire. I would even buy them again. My one issue with them is they don't have much for side lug, so if you're trying to get out of a rut and you're trying to climb the sidewall and stuff like that, there is none. It'll do it a little bit with the front tires, obviously, because you can turn them and stuff, but they won't grip sidewall of the mud pit as well as I want them to. So there's issues there, but overall, fantastic tire. I ride road, rail bed, trail, mud, you name it. and they haven't even worn down all that much, so they've been really good to me in the last 1,200 kilometers. No air issues, no nothing. And like I said, I'm not gentle on this thing. I know I clean it and it looks sharp and stuff, but believe me, this thing's been beat up. One of the issues I had out of the gate, and I'm assuming it was a factory issue, is one of my knuckles for the steering on the actual steering box plate popped out. And again, I'm not the only one with that issue. So I had to go in there and tighten it all up, realign my front end, because the way it popped out was pretty aggressive, and that was during my Robbie Dean ride in my video. I came into a hole and I didn't see a rock under the mud, bashed my tire in. No damage except for that popping out, so I tightened it up and everything's been good since, but I really cranked on it to make sure it wouldn't pop out. There's grease points on everything. A lot of them you have to get from opposite sides. Not a big deal there. Overall, super happy with it. It gets hot, it gets warm, not a big deal. Even if you're not a big mud guy, I would suggest getting your rad relocated, just because these bikes do get pretty hot. Will you overheat if you cake it and stuff like that? Absolutely. And I find it very nice and accessible up here. I use different chemicals in my cleaning video that you can see, and I clean it out. So that helped with my heat a lot. I know this video is all over the place. I'm just trying to think of everything that I've experienced with this bike, and there's probably more that I'm going to forget, but just wanted to share this with you guys. This machine has problems. It's not perfect. I'm not a CanAm guy by any means. I enjoy their product. I would buy it again, but they are not perfect. And I always say, if you've got money to fix it, CanAm's a great choice, because I'm probably gonna make a YouTube channel career out of fixing this thing. But it's so enjoyable that it's worth it for me. It's easy for me as a mechanic to say that, just because it's something I like doing anyway. It's something I'm good at doing, so just thought I'd share that with you guys. If there's anything you want to see, know about, or anything like that, just comment down below. I will absolutely answer all of your questions. I'll tell you truthfully what I think. If you want to know more about how we tow our quads, I've got the old power ram there. If you want to know more about Cass's bike, I can get her to do a review of hers too. We've got plenty of machines, projects all the time. So yeah, just comment, let me know what you think. I'll answer any question you have. Thanks for watching. This is my XMR 50+ hour review, and we'll see you next time.